everybody, back again, and the treadle hammer obviously has finished drying. This is now the day after we finished the treadle hammer. And one thing that I wanted to do, now that I've been looking at this, is I actually want to go ahead and make a safety for this, because I'm going to have, my nieces and nephews, I'm going to have some friends come into the shop, and the last thing I want them to do is put their hand down on this and then go to rest their foot. And you can see how that could be a bad idea. So today we're going to make a safety. The way this is going to work is very simple. I'm going to make a ring that I can weld onto this side, and a little decorative cobra-headed ring for this. This end there will be a bar attached by another ring, and on this end there will be a hook. So that way I can lift the hammer up, put the hook in, and let it sit in that cobra. That way, if somebody steps on this when we don't want to be forging with it, it's not going to, let's say, squish unwanted objects. What's cool about this is when I weld the ring on here, the way it's going to work, I'll be able to just let it dangle down the side, and it won't be getting in the way of any of our steel moving, it won't be getting in the way of our line of sight for forging, it won't be causing us any issues. Sturdied it up, you can see in one heat we've gone from round to nice and flat, reduced it by about half of its diameter, and that was the easiest way I've ever done that, because this machine swings that hammer for me beautifully. Our first little piece we're going to work with right here. And as you saw, we tapered one end on this already. So we're going to work away from the tapered end towards the center, the square end rather, towards the center to make this. Scroll the end on this real quick. This is just for aesthetics. This is the pieces we made for our mechanism. We've got our snake, which is about an extra pound or so of weight to add on to the head of that hammer. And he fits rather snug in place once he's on there. Kind of locks in place since I forged it to this shape. So when I tack weld this guy and do a couple of decent sized welds on this guy, it's not going to go anywhere. And as you can see, that adds a little bit of weight to the hammer, which is also going to be nice because having an extra pound or so of weight on the hammer will always be a good thing. This is our hook that's going to come back here and get welded on as far back on this corner as we can, facing up. So probably about like this. And the reason we're going to do that is for our locking mechanism. So what this is going to do for us, this is going to come around the bottom of the snake where it's coiled to prevent it from, once everything's welded up, prevent it from coming up and down. Basically prevent the hammer from being able to be actuated unless we want to actuate it. And if we do want to actuate it, all we have to do is take that guy off and let him swing, and the snake will stay on top as a decorative piece and something to add weight. So as you can see by the light outside, it's quite dark. It's getting pretty late, so we're going to call it a night here, and then tomorrow we'll get this welded in place, get it painted, and get a look at what we're dealing with in terms of the addition we've made to the hammer. We've got our snake where we want him to be when we weld this up. Then we're going to go ahead and take our little hook piece here. This is the finial hook that we made, and set it back here to find out where we need to lay out the hook in order to hold it back with the pressure off the spring when it's in safe mode. So we're going to weld this guy on first, then we're going to skip over and weld this onto the back end. So here is a closer look at what we've got going on for the mechanism. We've got our snake boy, our nice cobra, wrapped around that hammer handle and welded in place so it is now one with the hammer. Is coiled around it, ready to strike. Since the hammer does the striking, I figured we'd have a snake getting ready to strike, and a hook that holds the snake back from striking. This works is this hook is going to hold our bar on here, which is our safety bar, and when we want to put this on safe so it doesn't hammer, we just hold the snake's head back and set the hook under his coil right there. And that's going to keep all the tension off the spring. So the spring right now is not under tension at all. It's just not being pulled on at all. So this is going to make the spring last a lot longer, considering this is 13 plus pounds, closer to 14 pounds of hammerhead and snake that's sitting up here right now. And since there is so much weight on there, it does leave quite a bit of tension on that spring when I let her loose. You can kind of see it's got quite a bit of tension on there and quite a bit of weight. So in order to make sure my spring lasts a while and avoid injuries, I wanted to give it a lockout mechanism so that way it can be locked out. The spring's not under tension at all. And if I come over to the hammer, if I come over to the treadle and I press on it, you can see I can press on that treadle as hard as I want all day, and it's not going to let that hammer drop. So we've got a very solid affirmative hold down position here, and that works regardless of how this bar is set. It doesn't matter, it's always going to stay up. That way if somebody puts their hand on the anvil and then steps on the treadle, we don't have broken fingers. We've got a hammer that doesn't go bang. So here we have the hammer with the safety in the on position. This is going to make it, as I said before, to where I can step on that treadle all day and we're not getting any action in the hammer. And it's also taking all the weight off of my spring, so that way this spring can last longer. In order to take off the safety, you just lift up on the hammer, and that's going to disengage the safety. Let that set to the side, and now the hammer is free floating, and I can barely put any little bit of pressure on that, and it moves that hammer well. It added a good amount of weight by adding our snake friend here. We've got a nice cobra leaning forward, looking like it's ready to strike. So the idea is You know, if the cobra's got the hook on him, he can't strike. If the cobra's free, he can strike. So yeah, the treadle hammer is now all set. This is the last modification I think I'm going to actually do to the device itself. I am eventually going to try and weld a steel faceplate into this cast iron anvil down lower. Possibly also bring the hardy hole down lower as well, for putting some tooling in here that are going to act as dies, so I can get as much utility out of this thing as possible, because I'm going to spend the amount of time it takes to build something like this. I'm going to be getting all the utility I can out of it. To put it on safe, it's as simple as just pushing up on the hammerhead and latching it back on our snake. But that does it for today's video. If you guys liked what you seen, do me a favor, do that thing right there. And until next time, God bless, stay sharp out there. If you're looking for a custom hand-forged polearm, knife, sword, whatever, check out the Etsy store. Link will be at the end of the video. And me and the Treadle hammer will see you guys in the next one.